My name is Dr. Nkem Fortyunes Alu of the Department of Fine and Applied Arts, University of Nigeria, Nsukka. I majored in painting during my first degree, but afterwards I veered towards art education for my master's degree and my PhD. Art education is one of the two theoretical areas or sections in the department. The rest being sculpture, painting, ceramics, graphic arts, fashion design, and then textile designs. These are the ones the studio areas. But in Fine and Applied Arts, we have the two theory areas of art education and then art history. But my area now is art education. I teach both first degree and the postgraduate students from the postgraduate diploma through the PhD levels. Art education is oftentimes confused with what obtains in the faculty of education. Now, but that's not art education for us. Art education is about the theory areas in art, bordering specifically on what it takes to learn art. Now, art education says that whereas learning can occur sometimes without a teacher, teaching cannot occur without a learner. So, that being the case, we are into the nitty-gritties, what it takes to understand the elements and the principles of design, how to apply them, and whatever it takes for art, for an artwork to come to be, to make the artist the better of himself, thereby making sure he gets or grows to distinguish between himself and the roadside or the pedestrian artist. Now, I choose to break down art education under the acronym. Let's go this way. The principles of learning. The principles of learning art from the classroom to the studio to the art gallery, even down to the streets. The application. How do we apply all these principles? Now, the practice of art, then the evaluation, and then research in art. That gives us the acronym PAPER, P-A-P-E-R, principles, application, practice, evaluation, and research in the visual arts. That is what art education specifically tries to portray. And then in addition to having to survey the curriculum standard in art learning, during which time we come to understand that art learning is not about what obtains in the classroom. Art education, has gone to import apprenticeship from the traditional forms of art learning to the contemporary art learning forms. And that's why we say that whereas art can be taught in class, in the studio and elsewhere, art can also be learnt without a teacher by sheer exposure to experiences inclusive of mistakes, to manipulation of art media, rightly or wrongly. Some of these things can be emergent, some of these designs can be emergent, some can be preconsciously done. So art education tries to also go into the psychology of art learning. What does art do to the mind? Art of the mind, art of the mental department. When you engage art, what really does art tell you, and what do you tell art? There is a kind of communication that translates into what the real world has come to be known as the theater of the arts. I give an instance with human beings and objects that you see every single day. The first element with which you describe anything you see is by name, that's by nomenclature. After that, I think color comes next. That fair complexioned man, that complexioned woman in blue dresses, driving a white color vehicle and all that. Everything comes in description of colors after names. And then you have sizes, that's dimensions. Is this big, is that small? You move this way, art tries to describe the world. In the general scope of information collection and cataloging, you cannot do it without art. As a matter of fact, in all spheres of discipline recently, you cannot talk about education without instructional media in education, analog or digital. And you see that when it comes to imagery and image making, art becomes a tool for learning other subjects as well as an independent subject on its own. So, whether or not a school is offering fine arts as a course, it applies that fine arts is there, helping students to learn other subjects. For instance, when you draw an orange and yet another orange with a plus sign in between, you expect an equal to two oranges sideways without necessarily having to write one or two in digital forms. So artistic imagery helps, especially in special education, where you have atypical persons, people with dyslexia, people with autism, people with schizophrenia, people who are mentally challenged or otherwise. You use artistic imagery and illustrations to drive home learning much quicker than verbs, letters, digits, and all that. So what am I trying to say in effect is that art education is trying to present the art from the point of view of being an independent subject or discipline, as well as being a model for teaching other subjects. Art education also tries to talk about evaluation and criticism in art. Let me digress a bit. Professor Edmund Buck-Feldman proposed the 4 major steps onto art criticism and art learning, basically under the acronym DAIJ, D-A-I-J: description, analysis, interpretation, and judgment. If you don't know this, you may misjudge a work of art. If you don't know that for you to be able to appraise every work of art, you must undergo 3 basic steps. You must appraise it from the point of form, subject, and content. Whereas form deals with the topic, the theme, or the title of the artwork. Subject deals with the theme, topic, or title. Form has to do with the visual organization of the elements of design, which also brings in the principles of design, because the principles of design has to do with how to apply the elements of design. So when you're through with this, you go to the next stage, content, which is interpretation. What does the artwork translate to? Then you come to understand that every work of art portrays multiple meanings to different people. It might even mean something different to you from what it means to the artist himself who depicted the work of art. So art education, my area in the Department of Fine and Applied Arts, generally tries to survey the theories. It is different from art history, which has to do with dating, time, periods, civilizations, and the rest of them in art. Art education is like the hermeneutics of visual arts. It is also like anthropology and visual art, art of the now, art in the society, art among the people, art within the people. What do we do with art? What does art do to us and with us? That is what art education is all about. Now, not all Nigerian universities so far have started offering art education as a specialization area in the visual arts. So there are just a few, maybe UNN and some other institutions. Whereas most of the universities do art education at the level of postgraduate programs. We start from the first degree. We have students who specialize in art education here now, the first degree, postgraduate diploma, master's, PhD, and the rest of them. So that's specifically what we do here. The Department of Fine Arts, for your information, is that big. It's almost like a faculty. We have a lot of things going on at the same time. Thank you very much.